All right, if you're as new to this as I am, I'm the Second Act Tech Crew guy, and I'll be doing videos on coding, basic HTML, CSS. Eventually, I'll get into JavaScript, Python, things like that. Um, just pretty much trying to introduce people who don't have a background in it, and I'm going to walk you through my personal journey as I build my skills. Today, I'm going to be touching on padding in HTML using CSS because that's how we apply it. I will not be doing inline styling. I will be doing showing how to do it by creating a .css file and linking to it. Um, it's a pretty simple process. I've got laid out in some slides here. So let's get into it. All right, so what is padding? Well, padding in CSS is the space between an element's content and its border. So like, say my tablet is a container. So it could be a div container, um, an aside, main, any kind of container that has been you're applying uh, the padding to what is inside of it. So say this is a div, okay, and you've got an image and a paragraph. Maybe you got a couple different paragraphs, and say the paragraphs they've now they're nested inside the div, but they've each got their own class so that you can apply separate stylings to each one. So you can take the padding and you can make it to where one paragraph is just separated off to the side this way, but then this paragraph's pushed down below this one so it's not hugging up on it, and you could kind of separate them. And then this div container, you'd apply, like you can apply margin to where it'll add a buffer outside of the container to keep this container separated from another container, like say inside your body element. And that's pretty much it. Just think of it like a cushion that provides a breathing room between what's inside the element. All right, next up is why do we use padding? And simply put, we use padding to improve the spacing and readability inside elements, to create visual balance in layouts, prevent content from touching the borders, and enhance design aesthetics by adjusting spacing dynamically. I can sure write it and print it out easier than I can say it. Okay, you'll notice on here that I've got the proper identifier at the top. This is a basic, what you need to do your HTML file, and you got to have your doc type HTML tag at the top, your HTML, the language, the EN for English. Then you've got your opening head, your closing head, your body, and your closing body. And then you've got your closing HTML tag. And that's the basics. That's where you're going to start from. Everything gets built from here when you're talking about HTML. All right. Now, what I've done here inside the head is I've added the meta tags, the title, and a style link. So what you'll notice is the meta character set is UTF-8. This is pretty much your standard and then you go to your meta tag, and there's all sorts of meta tags. This is pretty simple. If you go in your developer tools, you really don't need somebody to walk you through it. In one sense, it's kind of cool to play with. You just go up to the three little dots on like if Microsoft Edge and Chrome are the ones that I use the most. And you go up there, get your drop down menu, take it down to other tools, I think is what it is, and then go down to developer tools. You get into the inspect, and it's just a cool area to play with because you have you can just go down and you can get blown away. If you're like me, you can get lost in it, and you just play. Now other people, there's videos out there that they show you how to manipulate the actual websites. Now, because you're doing it locally, you're not going to affect their output globally. It'll just show you on your computer what your changes would look like on there. So anyway, but if you do that, you'll see some very, very advanced meta tags, the head elements. It's just awesome. Anyway, you'll notice on this that I've got my title, CSS padding example. Then I've got my link that's to the style sheet, and the type is text /CSS, and then the hyperlink reference for it is styles.css. A lot of people name their CSS like initially. It's like a common thing to just name it styles.css. Obviously, if you've got a lot of different like different pages, really complex, then you might wind up, especially if you're coming from the same root folder, you might have a couple of different CSS. Like say for instance, if I make a folder and it's about just CSS in general, well, I could actually make a number of different CSS files, put them in there, name each one of them a slightly different name, and then in a parent folder or a sibling folder, I could have a bunch of different HTML files that link to each one of those. Most of the time, me personally, I like my HTML and my CSS in the same root folder, and then I'll do images in a subfolder and a child folder. Okay, let's move on. Alright, so add your content into your header if you're going to do a masthead. I'm using HTML and CSS for something I'm actually working on. I've taken out the image title and stuff that is actually going to be in it, and I've just put the image -name.png. So in your header, since I'm doing a masthead, I've got a div element that I've classified, and what a div is a generic container for grouping content, and it's used for laying out and styling purposes. Then if you go and you see that in the div there's the word class, and then an equal sign, then quotes, and masthead is inside. So that's going to tie into our CSS later. Okay, so the class, the word class, okay, it's a identifier. So you've got ID and you've got class. Those are a couple. The class is a reusable, and then the ID is considered to be, let's look at my notes. The ID is a unique identifier for an element commonly used in JavaScript or styling, and it'll have hashtag then ID in the CSS versus a class. A class will be a period, a dot, and then it'll have like masthead here. Div class equals masthead. Well, in the CSS, it'll say dot masthead, and then I'll have my curly brackets and whatever it is, you know, the padding, font, whatever is styled, how I want it to appear. So moving on, then you've got your image tag, and inside the image tag you've got your source, which that's where you copy and you paste your pathway for your image, and then the alternate text. So if something happens to your pathway and the image does not load correctly, well, what you want to do is you want to have text in there to let people know that say the image is a sailing vessel, 18th century or something like that. Well, if it doesn't load right, then your alternate text, you would just simply put in 18th century sailing vessel. Maybe it's a privateer, maybe it's a British Navy or a Spanish galleon or whatever. So you just add that descriptive in there, and then that will add. Okay, so then your class on that will be masthead dash image, because this is a masthead. And then in the CSS it'll be dot masthead dash image, and then your curling brackets. Okay, then you've got your H1. Now your headings go H1, H2, H3, H4, H5, and H6 in a descending order. It's obviously the H1 being the largest. Above that is your title. You know, if you're writing an article or something and you want the title, then the title is going to be a lot, you know, it's just a lot larger. And what an H1, each one of these, it's not just the font, it's the space, the margin, the padding. It has its own styling, so you don't have to worry about that unless you want to change something. But if you're gonna go changing stuff, me personally, if I'm gonna put something in there and I don't want it to appear the way the H1 is, like, you can change things with CSS, but a lot of times when I'm just playing around or whatever, then I'll just put them in a P tag, a paragraph tag, and I'll just do what I want to do with it, and maybe give it a class, and then just, I mean, you do that, you can just style, you can get it so crazy that you can style the different letters. Yeah, it really is. It's insane. So then you have the nav. Below that, you've got your navigation. This is going to create a navigation menu. And the class I've got in there is nav dash menu. And then you go down to the UL tags. That's your unordered list. Then, with your unordered list, I want to get this right. It creates an unordered list, often used for navigation menus or bullet point lists. Now, you also have your OL, the ordered list, which I personally, I haven't done ordered list since probably 2017, 2018. Um, I don't know why. Whenever I'm playing around, I always just go to the UL. Okay, then you've got your LI tag represents a list item, and it'll be inside your UL. It's nested. Okay, it's just like with folders. You have your root folder, your parent folder, your grandparent folder. You've got your child folder, grandchild folder, so on. So just like a family tree. Okay, then you've got your anchor, your hyperreference, which links your home, and you'll see it's hashtag home, hashtag about, hashtag contact, and then you've got the text in between your opening and your closing tags. Okay, and then the home, about, and contact, that's what's gonna display inside the actual masthead. And then you go down and you close each one of those in order, because you don't want to close your header before you've closed your div or your nav like that. The order you open them in, you need to close them in reverse order, if I'm saying that right. Okay, so why don't we just move on to the next one? All right, so you'll see in the note on this one, I've added toss in the div container. And really what this is, I didn't have to have this in here, but I wanted something separate that would point you to w3schools.com. And okay, I'm not an affiliate. I don't have any like I'm not sponsored. All you have to do is you'll see if you look at my channel or my Facebook, there's nothing that says I'm an affiliate of anybody, so I don't get paid for nothing. And this is really just me trying to get better and passing on some information and helping other people, if at all, because I imagine anybody watching anything I'm putting out, it's pretty raw. It's, I do a lot of retakes, very, very little editing, because I'm just it just takes so much time to do any of this stuff. I don't know how I don't know how people do this stuff and put content out there, uh, if they have jobs and families stuff, because for me it just takes so long to do this and get things set up. So anyway, what I've got here, it's a div container, but then I've put a class in it, for example, /box. So when you go to the CSS in a little bit, you'll see this. And then when I run the example, you'll see that also. Okay, so on my notes for add an explanation, you'll see that I've got a p tag for the paragraph. I've added a class, the explanation, and then I've added a short explanation. Now, in all this, when we're applying CSS, what we're dealing with is your pretty standard layout is 1920 pixels of horizontal display, and then you've got the 1080 pixels of your vertical, which is, you'll see a lot of times it's if you're reading something, it'll say a 1080p, I think it's when you go to YouTube or something and you go down to your quality, I think is what it's called. It's been a while since I looked at it, but it'll have 720, 740p, 1080p, something like that, 480, I think it is. They'll have different choices, and so that's pretty much what it's talking about. So when we're applying the styling and we know we've got a bunch of different elements of stuff, uh, we've got to figure out, like, as far as our um, far as where we want things sitting, uh, how much room we have for the visual. Because some things are, if we don't do it right, they're just going to get pushed down even if we don't want them to. So adjusting image size, applying height and width, minimum, maximum, all these different things come into play. So on this one, it's just a real simple box that I've added 20 pixels to the top and bottom, 5 pixels to the left and the right. Then of the padding, and then my border I've just put 1 pixel because all we really needed to do was like get a visual of just how big the container is, and that'll be a dashed black line that's 1 pixel thick, and then you'll see I've got the background color uh, with the hashtag F9, 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 and then that's a light gray background to highlight the padding effects. And that's pretty much it on this slide. All right. This good old 100% Colombian Folgers coffee. At least they say it's Colombian. I don't know. I can't tell the difference. As long as it's not Maxwell House. I don't know why I just can't drink it. It just, ugh. Every time I try Maxwell House, it tastes like I would imagine licking a ashtray. And that sucks because I like to change up my coffees and try different ones, you know, fresh ground beans, all that stuff, every now and again. If I'm not drinking a good tea mix, I like my green teas and my black teas mixed with some ginger root. I like to blend up about a half pound to a pound of ginger root, you know, dice it up real good, then blend it and let it just sit in the bottom of the tea jug, and let that ginger just absorb into all that tea. And sometimes I'll blend up a couple of lemons, maybe 5 or 6, and a gallon, and you know, get that lemon and ginger in there. I like to play with my teas. But anyway, so don't forget your CSS. My recommendation for starting any project: as soon as you realize you're going to be doing a project, you don't have to have Visual Studio Code, you don't have to have Atom, you don't have to have Sublime. I've had all 3 of them. The only things I use now is Visual Studio Code and Notepad. I mean, as far as the text editors, I will use Microsoft Word and Google Docs to like, I'll copy them out of Notepad, I'll put them in Word or Google Docs. Like if I'm going to go somewhere, I'll put it in Google Docs and then save it for offline use, so I can have access to it on my tablet if I'm going to be out somewhere and I'm going to be waiting, so I can go back. It's, you know, it's just easier to do it that way. But anyway, so take and create a folder, like for this one. The folder this is in is called padding, and instead of having the HTML and the CSS in the padding folder named index and styles respectively, well, it's padding.html and padding styles. Padding underscore styles is how I think I've got it named. And then just link it and save it. Save both. Throw you a little bit of, put you some HTML in whatever you're doing. Just throw you a paragraph in there. Throw an unordered list. Go to W3 Schools, Google HTML unordered list. You'll get a small snippet. Just copy it, put it over there, and just put like, copy and paste the LI tags till you get a few. Then put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, whatever you want. Just put that in the list, save it, and then run it. Just go open your folder that it's in, double click your browser icon, and it'll open up, and just look how it does. And then from there, it's all fun and games, lollipops and rainbows. And just go ahead and run it, and then just put classes. Whatever you do, play. Just play. You can have a purpose, yes, and that's all fine and dandy, but the curiosity is what's going to get you somewhere with this. It's always the curiosity, the imagination, the wondering what if, and look, if you screw the pooch on it, you steal the leprechaun's pot of gold and he comes after you, just delete it. That's all you got to do. Don't get crushed, just delete it and start over. Go to W3 Schools. And I know I keep bringing them up, but if you ever go there and you just dance around in there, just go through their navigation, pick and play. It's I'm not in there as much as I used to be, but yeah, it's good. You can learn a lot there. All right, so in my comments on this slide, you'll see the backslash asterisk masthead styling asterisk backslash. Those are the comment sections. When you're in CSS, HTML has its own version, and then CSS has its own version. I haven't played with JavaScript a lot yet, just kind of like dabbling in and out. So I don't know what the comment is. I can't remember it. Okay, so this is the dot masthead. Now in HTML, you'll see the element that will have class equals quote, double quote, masthead, double quote, so forth, so on. So this is the style for that. The position will be relative. The padding is going to be 20 pixels top and bottom. Then it'll be 10 pixels left and right. The background color is going to be and here I went and put notes underneath the styling, and I'm not even reading them. Okay, so let's just go ahead and read my notes, because let's see if this, okay, so the background color doesn't cover it. So let's read the notes. This CSS styling targets a masthead section, which is typically the header of a web page containing branding, titles, and possibly navigation. And I've got a few projects that I've played with and put navigation in there, and images, and background images, things like that. So here's what it'll do. The position relative, that ensures that child elements within the dot masthead can be positioned relative to this container. Then your padding, I covered that. That's your 20 pixels, 10 pixels. Create space inside the masthead, ensuring the content isn't pressed against the edges. So that's where I went over earlier about how whatever you've got inside that box the padding will keep it off the edges of the box unless you want it like writing really close, or you could put 0 in there. Like you can have 20 pixels for your top, and you can have 0 for your bottom, and then you can have 10 pixels left and right, and that'll do just that. It'll put your, like, if you have something outside of that container, it'll have a default setting, and then if you want 0, so it looks like they're just hovering, like this, to where it's like they're barely touching, then you can just go 0 on your padding, and if your margin is 0 on both, then you're going to be sitting like almost pretty much overlapping. And so on the background color, that's your red, green, blue, and alpha. So, yeah, where's the note? Okay, so in the little note, I didn't put in that your red, your first number, the 128, that's your red. How much red is there? Then your 0 is how much green. Then 128 again for your blue, and then the A is the 0.5. So down here, okay, the applies a semi-transparent purple background, which that is your 0.5. So if I were to change it, you could go 0.005, you could go 1.5, whatever. You can adjust it like anything else. Okay, then the color white, that's the text color. And now sometimes what you'll have is you'll have like font color, I think is one, font dash color. There's different things you can do. It just depends on what you want to do. Maybe for clarity, you might choose a different avenue. Then the overflow hidden styling prevents the collapsing due to floating. So prevents the masthead from collapsing if its child elements use float, ensuring it maintains its structure. Okay, so obviously it's been a while since I started this project, so whatever I was thinking about when I added that in there is you have CSS Flexbox, you have CSS Grid, box model, CSS box model, I think it is. Like right now, there's so many different things. I like to listen to Kevin Powell. There's a number of people in there. It's sometimes it's hard to decide who you want to listen to, because even though I'm doing this, I understand that there are people out there that are miles ahead of me. Like, they're just better at their video, they're better at their editing, they're better at their explanations. They're miles ahead, and that's their road. Pat them on the back. Thanks for being there, because we all need that. We have to find somebody we're comfortable with at that stage that we're in. And like I say, this helps me. So that, I think it's time to move to the next slide. All right, so in the comments on this one, you'll see where I've got the masthead text elements. Instead of having my masthead paragraph and my masthead heading 1 into classifying them into separate stylings and giving them different stylings, I went ahead and combined both of them into one, gave them both the float left, which aligns the heading 1 and the paragraph to the left side of the masthead. And then on the margin, that ensures the tight spacing within the masthead by getting rid of the margin. And then the padding, it's 5 pixels vertical, top bottom, and then 10 pixels the horizontal spacing for better reading. And then once we load it up, let's see, I don't know if it'll be in this or I'll do a separate video, but at some point this particular project, I'm not going to build it out. I don't believe this is the longest part of the project, is putting all these slides together and everything and doing a video for it. I'll probably run through something, like load it up, run it through, and see how it turns out from there. Alright, why don't we move on to the next one. Alright, so this one is the masthead image, and you'll see that what I've done is I'm floating the image to the right. That's moving the image to the right of the side of the masthead. Like I covered in the previous one, you can, when you apply the float, you can float it left, right, etc. Okay, so then I'm applying a maximum width of 150 pixels because the image itself is actually much larger than that. So it would just take over everything. And then the height, so when it says maintain aspect ratio, what it's referring to is my image is horizontally, I think it's like about between 3 and 5 times wider than it is high. I just, I threw it together with Paint, 3D, Paint, just whip something up real quick. And I think there was some images that I had AI create, and then I just like use Magic Select and Paint 3D and put them on like a black background or something like that. So anyway, what I did was, since I put the maximum width at 150 pixels, what that does is when I put height auto, it maintains that same ratio. That way what you won't have is you won't have the full height, but yet look all squishy, because of the 150 pixel width. And I probably should have just went ahead and put the original size of the image in here, pixels, to give you an idea what we're dealing with. So then the margin left, that is adding 35 pixels of left spacing to keep the image separate from the text. So what you're seeing is margin is the outside, okay? So the image, when you apply the margin, even though it's inside the masthead, the margin is applied to the image itself. So the padding that's applied to the other elements inside the masthead, that can work with, or in conjunction with, the margin that's added to the masthead image, if that makes sense. And I'm pretty sure I've got it laid out somehow to be able to show you. I've probably already done it. We'll see. But we'll see how it looks. Okay, so had to get a refill. All right, so you'll notice on here I did something that I should have done on the other ones. I did CSS styling for the nav class. All right, I should have did that. What I've got on the top of this slide, I should have did that on the other ones so that you can see what I'm doing, because I've been confusing myself too, honestly. Um, I'm just in a real rush to get this done because I started this project, I don't know, 3 weeks or a month ago. And the biggest problem I have is I'll get into something and I'll wind up getting into a whole bunch of other stuff. So um, what I've got going on here is my nav menu. You'll see that I've got the text aligned center, and the clear both prevents unwanted overlaps from floated elements. When we're dealing with styling, you've got your absolute positioning, you've got floating, um, auto. There's several different choices, and whether you're using Flexbox, grid, is it flex, and then grid, and then Flexbox? Anyway, there's a couple different ones, and usually what I have to do is I have to go in and I'll have to Google a question. What do I want to use? Sometimes not sometimes, okay. A lot of times now with the advent of Gemini, and I just actually, like just a couple days ago, started using Claude. I know I'm just so behind everything. Um, Chat GPT, Claude, Gemini, and Copilot. So sometimes what I'll do, I've got an idea of what I want. I'll go through, um, I'll pick something out, and I'll think to myself, okay, this is what I want, this is where I want it, so forth, so on. I'll get my HTML built, and then I'll go to, usually it's Copilot or Gemini. Those have been the most. I'm starting to pick up using ChatGPT here over the last couple weeks a lot more, and like I said, I just started with Claude, and pretty much I just want to see where their capabilities are. And one of the things I like about them is I can know or have a good idea what I want, like an essence, a vision, or whatever. And so I can lay out the basic design of what I want in the HTML. And then I'll be like, okay, I want to put these images here. Um, so I can add, the cool thing with the classes is you can name all your images, like image if you want, and then just put image 1, image 2, blah, blah, blah. And you could, long as your CSS classifications or identify which one's the identifier classifications. Talk to Kevin Powell if you want somebody who's right on the money on this stuff. The dude's a champ, and he is to CSS what Fei and Andrew are to AI. Like, I'll just say it that way. Anyway, so just you can name them how you want to, long as your identifiers match up. So where was I? Well, raccoon after something shiny. Okay, I'm gonna end it there because I think I said what I needed to say. All right, let's get my tea. pretty bad. I got coffee and tea sitting here, I guess. But I don't drink them for energy. I drink them because I like cold tea and I like hot coffee. Okay, so this is styling for the navigation menu, the on order list. So in the HTML, you can go back and you can look at the tags on the HTML, and there'll be a class in there, and the class should have nav dash menu UL. Now I gotta go look at it. So anyway, I'm not retaking this video. I'm gonna keep rolling with that. So anyway, okay, so the display flex enables the flexbox layout for horizontal alignment. And you know, I really could just like do this as a slideshow and post it without the video, without recording anything, because even though you still got to put it all together, you got to play with it and everything, which is part of the learning process, is turning it into a little playground. Playground for the mind. Let your mind wander. Anyway, so you add the justify content and then center, and it's going to center the list items horizontally. Okay. Now, the bullet points are a natural effect. I probably will do a short video. We'll see. I may just go ahead and like load this stuff up and like change the different things one at a time and just walk through this. We'll see. So when you put list style none, you remove the bullet points because that's the default thing. You can also add check marks, boxes, circles. You can do a lot. I haven't really played around with lists and tables and stuff in a while. Anyway, so, and then I've got no padding around here. So the summary is the style makes the navigation menu items appear in a horizontal row centered within the container and removes default list styling. And that's pretty much it. I could have actually did more. Like on this one, I could have added box shadows and do stuff to make it stand out, but why bother, really? Let's go to the next one. So if you actually go in and look at this one, you see that this is the list items. So like if my fingers represent the list, 4 different list tags, then the UL is the container that it's around, and then if the UL is stacked inside a section, an aside, a div, a main, then that's the container it's in. So each container gets nested inside of something else. Like, you have the HTML, and then inside the HTML tags, you have your body, your head, everything else. So everything builds off one another. Anyway, so you see there's no margin on the top and the bottom, and then the 15 pixels, that's your left and right margin. So the summary is that it horizontally spaces out each navigation item, and it's creating a visual separation between them. So you could actually not have the margin at all, but it would look cramped. It really wouldn't look good. And I could have added padding inside of here, just like with the unordered list or the div or anything else. You can, depending on how you set it up, because you can do things that will cancel out. Like you can put box shadow on something, or a gradient color, or just a color, background color, whatever, but then put something else in the CSS, and because whatever you put last affects the previous one, well, what comes last will cancel that out. So sometimes when we break something, it's really just something simple. So let's move on to the next one. All right, this is the anchor. All right, where you see the nav menu A, that means this is styling the anchor tags. All right, real quick, you'll notice the text decoration none, boom, kills the default underline. Okay, you can read the summary and you'll see that the browsers, they'll put in an underline and they'll automatically color the text blue, and then if you visit it, purple. So we remove that. We made sure to set the color of the link text to white. Then the font size we put 16. And then the padding, as I've mentioned before, the vertical is set, which the vertical is the top and the bottom, obviously. And then the horizontal, the left and the right, is set at 10. All right. And the reason why you do this, at the very bottom here, you'll see where it says this is commonly done in navigation menus and buttons to create a cleaner and more custom design. Because, once you start just really going into it, and you're just going through, some websites are just so busy. There's just so much going on, and then some are just they're so minimalistic, they're boring. Like there's no shadows, there's no sliders, there's no hover effects, any form of animation that lets you know you're actually on an interactive or responsive page. And that's what you want. You actually want to be on a responsive web page. You don't really want to be on one that is dead. You move your mouse around, you want to know that you're there. Anyway, let's go to the next one. All right, this one gets got a little bit extra going on here, and this is for the example box. So it's funny because I actually did this stuff. It's gotta be 2 months now. Like when I actually started, because I have different things going, and I'll forget about something. I'll start something thinking I'm gonna finish it, but I forgot just what all I was doing here. I'm gonna have to go back and load this back up and look at it. So the example box, we got some padding for the top and the bottom, which, the note here, I got it interspacing. Now I'm definitely gonna have to play with it because I don't forgot. Oh, I forgot about the box shadow stuff. I think I covered that earlier, but Oh yeah, I definitely want to. I gotta load this up because I don't forgot how it looks now. Oh my goodness. Anyway, I'm going off on a. I'm tired. Been awake. It's early in the morning, but I'm still. I've been awake. What time is it? Oh my, jeez. Yeah, it's not even 10 o'clock. Yeah. Mm. I've been up a long enough time. So, uh, the styling on this one creates a centered fixed width box with padding, a dashed border. Oh yeah, that's right. And a light background with centered text and a subtle shadow to make it stand out. Yeah, okay. I'm gonna load it at some point here, probably maybe today, maybe not. Depends on how much I get done. But I gotta load it and then maybe do um, just do an actual run through uh, to be a counterpart to this one. All right, let's move to the next one. All right. Wow. This is the CSS for the paragraph that is classified as the explanation. All right, you'll notice it's going to have the blue dashed border, 2 pixels thick. It's going to have space inside the box around the content. The padding is 10 pixels, and that's what is going to give it that space. The background color is very light blue. And I'll have to run this stuff to because I haven't run it in I don't know um, since probably the first few slides when I first set it up, and I know I've made some changes, and I really hope the changes I made it to the slides. um, so this summary styles the element as a softly highlighted info box with a blue dashed border and internal spacing, which makes it great for notes or callouts. That is the key explanations, the tips or notes, the warnings or alerts, and summaries or action items. And that's it on that one. It's pretty simple, and overall it's pretty the HTML and the CSS. I think I probably need to load this up. Maybe host it on GitHub and then put a link with the video. We'll look at that. And then all you have to do is have a GitHub account and you can play with it. All right, let's go to the next one. Hey, thanks for watching. So even if you're just listening, um, I listen to people like Gothics and April Wilkerson with Wilker Doos and Patrick Bet David and Dan Martell and Leah Motley and Myron Golden and Cody Sanchez, the Harmosies. Listen to people that put good things in the brain pan while doing work around the house, or even when I was driving, uh, for a living, listening to stuff and then being able to come back. So if you're doing this, because I'm doing this for me, even if nobody watches any of these videos, I'm still going to start putting them out because I need to increase my knowledge. I need to increase my comfortability, my presentation, uh, and just get better. And my speaking too. I need to. I can't stand listen. I can't stand the playback. Anyway, because I say a whole lot. It seems like. So anyway, I'm watching the ticker. I didn't mean for this to wind up being an hour, but here it is, 59 minutes and so forth. So thank you. If you've stuck out this far, I appreciate it. And I hope this at least gives you a little bump to where you can take it and you can play with it, because you can take this, just what I've put here, and you can actually create something with it. it's really not that hard. It's, you know, it's imagination, and then it's fixing stuff when it breaks. So I'm James Bishop. It's the Second Act Tech Crew, and thanks for being here for the journey.